Snow trapped them inside the cabin, but it was love that kept them warm. That's the story I'm going to tell you today. A story about how the coldest of nights can spark the warmest of flames. It all started with a simple misunderstanding. Two strangers, Leo and Clara, both booked the same remote cabin for a solo winter retreat. Leo, a writer chasing a deadline, was looking for absolute silence. Clara, an artist escaping the city's noise, was seeking inspiration in nature's quiet beauty. You can imagine the surprise when they both showed up, keys in hand, ready to claim their solitary paradise. An awkward phone call to the rental company confirmed the double. With a massive snowstorm already brewing on the horizon, the nearest town was hours away, and the roads were becoming treacherous. They had no choice. They would have to share. The first evening was a symphony of awkward silence. Leo, ever the pragmatist, immediately started rationing the firewood and checking the pantry. Clara, more of a free spirit, tried to lighten the mood by brewing a pot of herbal tea, its fragrant steam filling the tense air. They sat on opposite ends of the long wooden table, the crackling fireplace the only thing connecting them. Leo was buried in his laptop, fingers flying across the keyboard, a deep frown etched on his face. That night, the storm hit with full force. The wind howled like a hungry wolf, rattling the window panes. The silence that followed was heavier than before. It was in that moment of shared vulnerability that the first real crack appeared in their icy exterior. Clara, trying to navigate the dark, stumbled, and Leo, reacting on instinct, caught her arm. For a moment they stood there, close enough to feel the warmth radiating from each other, the storm outside a distant echo to the sudden thumping in their chests. The next morning, they woke up to a world transformed. A thick blanket of pristine white snow covered everything as far as the eye could see. The cabin was completely snowed in. The roads were impassable. They were truly, utterly stranded. Panic could have set in, but instead, something else did. Acceptance, with no Wi-Fi, no deadlines, and no escape. They were forced to simply be. They fell into a surprisingly easy rhythm. Leo, it turned out, was a fantastic cook, a skill he'd picked up during his college days. He'd whip up hearty stews and bake bread in the old cast-iron skillet over the fire, filling the cabin with delicious, comforting aromas. Clara, in return, showed him how to see the world through an artist's eyes. She pointed out the way the sunlight sparkled on the icicles hanging from the eaves, like a diamond necklace. She taught him the names of the winter birds that flitted to the feeder they filled with seeds found in the pantry. They talked. Oh, how they talked. With no digital distractions, they rediscovered the art of conversation. Leo told her about his unfinished novel, a story he'd been too afraid to complete. He confessed his fear of failure, the pressure to live up to the success of his first book. Clara shared her own insecurities, her struggle to find her voice in the competitive art world, the feeling that her work was never quite good enough. In the warm glow of the fire, surrounded by the silent, snowy landscape, they shared secrets they'd never told another soul. They weren't just two strangers anymore. They were two people, seeing each other with a clarity that the busy world outside had never allowed. One afternoon, Clara was sketching by the window, capturing the frozen lake as it shimmered under the pale winter sun. Leo came and stood behind her, watching her hand move gracefully across the page. He pointed to a small detail in her drawing. "You see things differently," he said, his voice soft. "You see the beauty in things I just walked past." Clara looked up at him, her heart skipping a beat. "And you," she replied. "You build worlds with words. You create entire lives out of nothing." In that moment, a quiet understanding passed between them. They weren't just a writer and an artist. They were complements, two halves of a whole they never knew was incomplete. The days melted into one another, each filled with small moments of connection. They'd read old books aloud to each other by the fire, their voices intertwining in the cozy space. They played a dusty old board game they found in a cupboard, their laughter echoing through the cabin. One evening, Leo found an old guitar with a missing string in the attic. He tuned it as best he could and played a simple, haunting melody. Clara closed her eyes and listened, feeling the music resonate deep within her soul. It was a song of solitude, of longing, but also of unexpected discovery. As the week wore on, the physical space between them seemed to shrink. A casual touch on the arm lingered a little longer. Their gazes would meet across the room and hold for a moment too long. The air was charged with an unspoken tension, but it wasn't awkward anymore. It was electric. The turning point came on the fifth night. The fire was burning low, casting long, dancing shadows on the walls. They were sitting on the thick rug in front of the hearth, sharing a blanket. The conversation had dwindled to a comfortable silence. Leo turned to Clara, his eyes dark and serious in the firelight. "I haven't written a single word of my book," he confessed, "but I think I've found a new story." Clara's heart hammered against her ribs. "What's it about?" she whispered. Leo reached out and gently brushed a strand of hair from her face, his fingers warm against her cold skin. "It's about a man who thought he needed silence to find his words," he said, his voice barely a whisper, but realized he just needed the right person to listen. And then he leaned in and kissed her. It wasn't a passionate, desperate kiss. It was soft and tentative, and full of all the unspoken things that had been building between them over the past few days. It was a kiss that tasted of wood smoke and herbal tea, and the promise of a new beginning. Clara melted into it, her hands coming up to cup his face. The storm outside had long since passed, but a new, more wonderful storm was raging inside of them. When they finally heard the distant rumble of a snowplow a couple of days later, the sound brought a strange mix of relief and sadness. The outside world was coming back to claim them. Their perfect, isolated bubble was about to burst. They packed their things in silence, the cabin feeling impossibly large and empty again. The magic was fading with the melting snow. Standing at the door, bags in hand, the unspoken question hung in the air. What now? Was this just a cabin story? A fleeting moment, born of proximity and circumstance, destined to melt away like the snow? Leo looked at Clara, at the artist who'd colored his monochrome world. Clara looked at Leo, the writer who had given her a story more beautiful than any she could have imagined. Leo broke the silence. "My apartment's in the city?" he started, his voice a little unsteady. "It has a big window with great morning light. I think an artist would like it." A slow smile spread across Clara's face, bright as the sun on the fresh snow. "And my studio," she replied, "is usually very quiet. Maybe Araya could finally finish his book there." They walked out of the cabin and into the bright, sunlit world. But this time, they walked out together. The snow had trapped them inside the cabin, but it was love that had set them free. They had come seeking solitude, but they left having found its opposite, and discovered it was what they had been searching for all along. Thank you so much for watching this story today. If you enjoyed this little escape, do not forget to like this video, and subscribe to the channel for more stories that warm the heart. We all have our own cabins and our own storms, but sometimes the most unexpected company can make all the difference. See you in the next one.